applause from the crowd. Now she's Panthers on the bathroom sink. Her mother would be so proud. Gets on a deed and there's a line to go pee, but the bathroom looks like a war zone.
Welcome in to episode 197 of Fired Up Sports. Check us out at firedupsports.com. I'm Mike Gillotto. Joining me, as always, Mark Ramos. What's going on, brother?
Not much, man. Trying to stay cool these days.
Yes.
Have the new Fired Up Sports hoodie on
There you go.
because it's
Repping the
cool in
brand.
here. Yeah, repping the brand. Have to rep the brand. Yeah. So I mean, just getting ready for these drafts coming up here. That's the kind of where my mind's at.
Busy
NBA
week.
and NHL drafts. So
Yes. Very busy week between the NHL draft and the NBA draft, and the Phillies are playing in Houston. It's like an 8:30 start or an 8:05 start? It's always a weird time to start a baseball game. But
yeah, that was just they're home, right? The Phillies are home.
no, but they're in Houston, are they not?
Oh, they're in Houston. Okay.
Yeah, I believe they're in Houston.
Yeah. Either way, it's still tough.
Yes. So, but either way, it's a busy week, and yeah, they are in Houston. But kind of where I wanted to start this week, the Flyers start. They start making the moves early, right? The draft's not until Friday. They go out yesterday and they trade for Trevor Zegras of the Anaheim Ducks, somebody who kind of has really been in trade rumors a lot the last couple of seasons, or maybe the last season and a half, something like that. They have like an influx of young forwards, right? After the Gauthier trade, they have Mason McTavish. They have a few, Leo Carlson. So he's kind of the odd man out. He's 1 year left and then is a restricted free agent. I guess where I'll start is just looking at the player alone. I'm not the biggest Trevor Zegras fan, but when you look at what they gave up and the pedigree and the raw talent that he has, I think it's 100% worth the risk.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm kind of on the other side of it. I mean, like, I'm a big fan of his. I've been a big fan of his. I'm glad that the Flyers are now kind of taking – that was a proactive thing, I think, for Briere, right? Because this goes back – you'd mentioned, Mike, their interest had gone back a couple seasons in Zegras. I mean, I remember reading that. I think Ann Sanfilippo had that last season. I think there was that rumor had broke about the Flyers' interest in a player like Trevor Zegras. So I was really kind of, I don't know exactly what happened there in Anaheim with him. I know that if you remember a couple of years ago, it was kind of, they made a coaching change and things like that because they were a little too freewheeling, a little too open. I think they wanted to instill some structure there. And
then they got Torts on steroids. I mean, Greg Cronin, from all accounts, seemed like he was not a player's coach. Whatever the opposite of a player's coach is, that's what Greg Cronin was to them.
Right. Yeah. So he wasn't like it wasn't a good fit there, and I think we've seen that happen here. But it was nice. It was nice for the Flyers to kind of be on the receiving end of this like deal that when it broke, I mean, the reaction was funny because usually Flyers fans are very, very divided on things like that.
Sure, yeah.
But everybody universally seemed to like the trade. But if you looked at it from Anaheim's perspective, everybody's like, what are we doing? Like, that was, you know what I mean? They gave up. We got nothing back in return for this guy. So, no, I like the trade. Like I said, I like the player. It gives me a little bit more confidence, too, I think, in this regime that they're kind of heading in the right direction. And I think I needed to see a trade like that to help me along here on that.
Yeah, and you look at what they gave up, right? Ryan Poehling, the 45th overall pick, and a fourth rounder. Is that fourth rounder this year or next year? I forgot to look.
It's 2026. So
so it's next year, yeah. So look at what they gave up. So Ryan Poehling's kind of a guy who came in here. He signed him in free agency, a year and a half or 2 years ago, give or take.
Yeah.
Kind of a guy who was like a fringe NHLer at the time. Kind of carved out a nice little bottom six role though. Played balls to the wall. He just carved out a nice little role in the NHL as a bottom six player. But at the end of the day, that's all he is. Like he's a bottom six player.
Right.
A second round pick. You still have three more. Like, you know what I mean? Who cares about that second round pick? And a fourth round pick. In today's world, the fourth round picks are just, you got like a 2% chance of that guy ever becoming an NHL player. Like, it's just such a rare thing to find unless you strike gold or hit the lottery. Like that pick's probably meaningless anyway. And you get a guy who in Zegras who has the pedigree. He was he ninth overall pick in 2019. Yeah. He's got the pedigree, and he's got the raw talent. We've seen all the fancy goals, the Michigans, the alley-oop, or whatever you want to call it, to San, who was that to? Milano? Sonny Milano?
Yeah,
so, yeah, I mean, you see the flashiness. He's got talent, obviously. It's just, can he put it all together? Not the greatest in his own end. And other than his first, season or two, where 61 points and then 65 points, hasn't really been as productive. It could have been the coaching change. It's also dealt with a couple injuries the last couple of years. But it's 100% worth the risk, and the Flyers are, no pun intended, taking a flyer on Trevor Zegras. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. No, I wrote a little bit about this on the website, and once they traded for him, and I had some time, so I wrote down some thoughts about it, and it was just kind of too, I mean, the injuries were, I think, a part of it, but also I think they had also made a lot of changes in terms of, it reminds me a lot of the situation that played out with Braden Shen here. Shen was somebody that, I think really felt more comfortable and wanted to play center. And the Flyers were using him at the time a lot on the wing. And when he got to St. Louis, I mean, I think the Blues kind of looked at him as they're like, no, I mean, we're going to use him as a center. And, the rest was history there, as far as what he was able to bring that club at the time. I don't think it's a stylistic comparison at all. They're very, very different players, but I think the situation was similar. Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of them taking a swing on a player like this. I think with having players like Michkov and stuff like that, you need guys too that kind of think the game in a skillful way. I really do. I think skill begets skill. They'll figure things out with each other, and they'll probably be able to create some pretty dynamic things, out there. So that part's exciting, and it's also exciting that it kind of seems like they're not done. So we may be hearing more over the next handful of days here.
Do you envision them playing with each other? I on the power play, I think it makes a lot of sense. Two creative guys, two offensive guys. I just worry about the defensive part of the game with them both on the ice at the same time, 5-on-5. That concerns me a little bit.
No, I get it. I that's definitely a concern. A part of me wants them to just go balls to the wall offense with the line and just kind of defensive assignments be damned. Everybody go get yours, fill the net up, and because at the same time too, I mean, they kind of locked everybody up. Cates is here, Forrester's here. That line was a really good checking line for them. I think any line that has Sean Couturier in the middle of it has a defensive conscience. So I think I'm okay with a line kind of being a little bit more
reckless
for a lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Or just more this is going to sound
one-dimensional.
One way,
One way,
what I mean?
right,
As we use the term two-way a lot in hockey, right?
Yes.
But
yes,
one way I think kind of works for me. So yeah. I mean, I would be interested in them just kind of going straight out offense on like a top six line, and just seeing what that can do. I mean, uh, I yeah, but I mean, I've liked Zegers for a long time, and he's fun. Like he's a fun player to have. I think to root for. I
It's
think
quite the
younger fans,
personality too.
yeah, the younger fans will really kind of dig him, and you know, as long as he comes and plays hard here. I mean, even if he's not a great two-way guy or great in his own end, um, I think people will appreciate like if he's out there like really busting it. People they'll give him a pass somewhat on that. You know what I mean? And it was a fun acquisition. And then as you said, like the price was just. I mean, you can't turn down the price, and you know they got more out of Ryan Paling than I thought they would have.
Definitely.
You know, as a player, I was with you at the time that they brought him in, but he was a good soldier for the Flyers and uh, proved that he can be an everyday like bottom six guy. Um, and yeah, I mean, so like that's another position too. Like I mean, like well, they'll probably address or maybe they'll look internally, have an internal competition in camp this year for the fourth line center spot, but that'll be another spot open for somebody to make the team.
Yeah. Yeah. I part of me's curious if because there's obviously a lot of rumors before the Zegers trade about Marco Rossi. I'm
Hmm.
curious if he was kind of their first option. Price was too high. Maybe they wanted one of the first round picks. Flyers just didn't want to do it, and then they kind of pivot to Zegers. I'm curious
Hmm.
as how much that played a factor.
Yeah, because I mean, Briere had said in the press conference after, right? Like I think he had mentioned like first round picks for the Flyers are off the table. They're not looking to move a first rounder. Um,
Which is a little
and
surprising to me. I don't maybe because they're using it for something else or to move up, whatever. To
mhm,
me, I don't see them making 3 first round picks.
yeah, I've kind of gone back and forth about that. As the season wore on this year, I was thinking, I was like, I thought that at the beginning of the year that they wouldn't use all
Yeah,
three of the first rounders, but as the season wore along, I was like, I think they're going to,
yeah,
um, and especially like the back end of the draft here. I think um, I don't know. I think they're kind of interested in some of the names that are kind of in that area. So um, if you really like the player, I mean, and the Flyers historically do pretty well in late first rounds. So I think that's probably a reason to hold on to two of them late in the first, and hoping that you can get two bona fide NHL guys out of those picks would be really good. But I mean, I think the seconds are definitely in play. Even now, they have uh, you know what like they have three second rounders. So really, you
yep,
could use you could trade two of them, and still get something
yeah,
that can help you today. Um, but yeah, Rossi's kind of that's been out there that he's the Wild won a first round pick back. Um, and if the Flyers weren't willing to do that, I could totally see a scenario where they kind of pivoted to Zegras, knowing that he was available and hadn't available, because it seemed like that was kind of at the complete end there with the Ducks. I don't think he would have been there regardless whether he was getting traded to the Flyers or somewhere else. I don't think he would have been back with them this year.
yeah. I agree. And now that kind of moves us along to Friday, the first round of the draft, and I don't think it should, but I'm curious if this kind of changes their plan on who to target or like what they're kind of thinking is going in on the type of player they want. If they're just still going to go best player available, what do you think? Do you think this alters their draft plan at all?
I don't think so. I think for the fact that like we kind of look at it as we look at it at a certain time every year, right? Like the draft rolls around every summer in June, and we start to develop opinions on these players. But like really for NHL teams, they're looking at these guys all year long. So I think they
Yeah,
pretty much have pretty hardwired opinions about, hey, this is what we think this guy is, this is what we think this player is, and so on and so forth. So I don't really like think that alters their plan. I also like the idea of just like stacking as many centers as you can, especially high quality ones. And or even if if it's Mortone, Porter Mortone, or whoever the best player available is um, at 6, I would be taking that player regardless. I don't think trading for Zekers kind of changes that, because even though they've added here and he should give them a boost offensively and in the skill department, which is what they desperately needed, uh, you still like this is still kind of a ways away from being like bona fide championship contenders, you know?
What worries me is the fact that Zegers obviously is a little smaller, right? And a guy like Higgins drops T at 6, right? Do they want to get another? And I don't even think Higgins is as small as people are making him out to be. But do you want to get another smaller center, and then your 1-2 centers down for in the future are Higgins and Zegers? And I don't necessarily have a problem with it if the players around them are bigger, because I don't think everybody needs to be big in order to succeed. But like, I'm worried that they're gonna pass on a guy like Higgins because they just got Zegers, who is smaller, and they don't want 2 of those guys.
Right, right.
So that's my
Maybe,
concern, because I think Higgins is one of the top 2 or 3 players in the draft, personally.
yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I think it kind of went like a lot of the stuff that we were hearing about Higgins was kind of, I feel like he's kind of being undervalued now at this point. Like, whereas like, um, there's been so much made of the other players ahead of him that have surpassed him in a lot of people's eyes. But this was a player that was considered the first overall pick a year ago. A
Yep.
lot of people saw him as the projected first overall pick a year ago. So, um, and I don't really know that there's anything that's happened that other than other players really kind of stepping up this year. Players like Anton Frondell and guys that are like really shooting up draft boards into that, vaulting into that top 3, that projected top 3. I, you know, I don't think that should that shouldn't be like a deterrent or a knock on Higgins. That other players are having great years too, and yeah, I mean, I would have zero hesitation to take him with that pick if he's there. I kind of feel like you just need to, above all else, I think it's important that the Flyers grab the talent now and figure out the rest later, because
Yep.
it's too much. It's too hard. You know what I mean? It's too hard. I mean, like when we look at the entire Zegras picture, like we said at the top of the show, I mean, this was a player that had been the Flyers. I'm sure had conversations about him going back to last season, before like it kind of made sense and it was the right time to pull the trigger on that. And it's like, how much longer do you want to kick the can down the road? Where it's like, yeah, maybe you have other problems, but you're super like, if there's the one thing that you can't take away from the group is that, yeah, they might be a little small, but they can play.
Yeah.
Well, then you start figuring out, then that's when you start kind of trying to, oh, we'll try to add some size on the wings, or we're trying to add some toughness. I think I'd rather you see teams get to that level where they're a perennial playoff team on the verge of contention for the cup. And that's when they start kind of like tinkering with those kinds of things. But it's like I think it's a philosophical thing, right? And I also think it's like a, chicken and the egg thing. Like
Yeah.
I don't think there's any real answer to what comes first. But above all else, I think you can't pick that high and just like start to be cute with it. You have to go with the most talented player you can find, in my opinion. So
Yeah, and we talked about it last week about the rise of Brady Martin,
mhm.
and I'm out on Brady Martin at 6. Like, could he be a good player, good value from, I don't know, 10 to 13, whatever. Sure, somebody's gonna get a really good player at that range, but I don't think it should be. I think there are better players at the draft at 6, and you made the comparison last week to Sam Bennett. And because everybody sees what Sam Bennett did in the playoffs, and everybody wants themselves a Sam Bennett. But the thing I think people are forgetting is the Florida Panthers didn't necessarily. Yes, they won the cup, and Sam Bennett was a big part of that. But they didn't get to the playoffs because of Sam Bennett. They
Right.
became a damn good team because they drafted an Alexander Barkov high. They drafted an Aaron Ekblad high. Like they drafted really good players really really high, and then they figured out the rest later. Like Sam Bennett kind of fell in their laps from that trade from Calgary, and just 50, 60 point player max, and just turns it on in the playoffs. You can find that guy later. You don't take that guy 6 overall, in my opinion.
Right. No, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And if you really, really love the player and you think he's an essential piece to your puzzle, trade down, move back and add an asset and get him there. There's no reason to like jump early because you're afraid he may not be there later. You have to have like multiple pathways built in, and Florida's a great example of like a team that you and I are both hockey guys, right, Mike? And, Florida's a great example of like looking everywhere looking high and low for just good players.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Did the Florida Panthers think when they claimed Gustav Forsling off of waivers that he was going to be like a top pair defenseman on 2 cup teams? I seriously doubt that.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it was like they got a little lucky there. But you only get...
Yeah, no, they did make bold moves. I'll say that because they obviously they go out and sign, but they signed Bobrovsky.
I think
right?
they signed him. Yeah,
they signed Bobrovsky to that massive contract, and like Bob's a guy who has a really interesting career. Obviously, we know of him from his early time here, but he's also like a guy who I think people forget he's lost his job a few times. Like he's had rough moments through the last 7, 8, 9 seasons. Like it seems like every other season he was either great or terrible, and the last couple he's been really good, obviously, but that's a move that in the end worked out for them. Right. They see a guy like Brad Marchand available, they go out and do it. They trade a fan favorite in Jonathan Huberdeau and Brandon Montour, right? That was Montour, right?
It was Mackenzie Weegar.
No. Mackenzie Weegar, other defenseman, yes. Weegar and Huberdeau. Huberdeau, I think, wasn't that when they traded him? Didn't he just set the record for like most assists from a left winger and like ever in the NHL? He was something stupid, and they traded him for Matthew Tkachuk. Like, just bold moves, bold trades you can make down the line. But again, it started with them picking Alexander Barkov like 3rd overall or whatever he was. Like, that's where it starts. Those high picks. Figure out the rest later. Get the talent in. Figure out the rest later.
Yeah, and they've made some other, other real shrewd moves, getting like a player like Carter Verhaeghe in there. There's multiple. There's something like you have to like explore every avenue, but as you said, like you're not even in a position to make like a Matthew Tkachuk trade if you didn't pick high and take Jonathan Huberdeau.
Right.
You know what I mean, and things like that. So. There's always opportunities. Players are always available. You know what I mean? And I think when 2 teams, like this year, we've heard crazy things about Buffalo putting J.J. Peterka out there, Dallas thinking about Jason Robertson. These guys are
crazy.
That one's nuts. But it's just like, I guess they're just like trying to gauge interest. But it's like one of these things where it's just like, it's just so hard to find talented players like that, players of that ilk, that you just to move them seems like such a risk, you know what I mean? But sometimes guys fall through the cracks for whatever reason, and you're able to acquire a guy that has really undeniable talent like a Zegras, where like opportunity, some injuries and things like that haven't really been there for him, but he'll get that here in Philadelphia. So, I love the trade. I really do. And it made me, I'm excited to see what else is to come. Yeah. With not only other moves, but also like what their plan is for the draft. So I'm really kind of clued into that now, more so than I am already. And I'm already pretty clued in because I dislike this stuff. So I'm always looking at this stuff.
Yeah, I'm curious what else they do. even with not talking about the draft, because we spent a lot of time talking about the prospects, but like, what other moves are out there? Do they find a defenseman somewhere? Obviously, we've heard of like Bowen Byram's name out there.
Mhm.
Um, I'm curious if they do anything else, or if they even try forward. I mean, there's no secret that this. I mean, they finished what, third worst in the third or fourth worst in the league last year. Like, there's
Mhm.
room for improvement, obviously, and kind of all over the place, right?
Right.
Holes at forward, holes at defenseman, goaltending the last 2 years has been kind of a mess. So what do they do there? I guess is the question. The report is they want to upgrade the goaltending pretty big. I
Yeah.
don't know that the market for a goaltender is all that hot right now. Like, it doesn't seem like there's many good ones available.
Yeah.
I think Jake Allen would be a pretty big upgrade. I think he's one of the most underrated goalies in the league. Problem is, I think a lot of really, really good teams that are maybe like a goalie away are going to be interested in him. And if I'm him, I'm going to those teams over the rebuilding Flyers.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's why he was in Jersey last year.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, they brought Jacob Markstrom in to be their starter, but Jake Allen's a pretty good tandem goalie,
definitely.
and has been for a while. Yeah, I think the Flyers will be one of the teams kind of checking in on that. But you're right, like the goaltending market's really kind of dried up. The free agent market is as bare bones as you get. There's no one you can outright bring in or sign on the free agent market. The goalies that are going to market that you can say are an upgrade over what they had last year, and the Flyers had statistically some of the worst goaltending in the NHL last year. So it's like, how bad is that market if you
Yeah.
can't even like find like an upgrade for one of the worst goaltending seasons they've had in the league last year? So obviously Urson's going to be one of those guys, but and even though I think the Flyers really like Carson Bjarnason, prospect goaltender who's turning pro this year, but he's probably going to need some time. There's no reason to rush that kid up here, so he's probably going to be in Lehigh Valley with the Phantoms for maybe 2 seasons, 2 full seasons before they think about thinking he's ready.
All right, so I have the current list of upcoming unrestricted free agent goaltenders, and this list is sorted based on their previous season's AAV. So the first couple on this list are kind of out of whack.
Okay.
The first one on the list is Robin Lehner. His injury I don't even know if he's even available. So
Yeah,
I'll
he's
cross
not
him
in.
off the list.
Yeah.
Number two, Cal Peterson. No, thank you. We already saw him. Uh, Billy Huso. I'm good with that. No, thank you. And then we get the Jake Allen, kind of the top guy on the list, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Vitek Vanacek. Not all that special to me.
No, no,
Alexander Georgiev,
no,
Anton Forsberg,
no.
Dan Vladar. And
I
then
think
the
he's
next. Sorry, the
Valdar.
next one. Go ahead. Sorry, cut you off.
No, no, you're good. I heard recently Valdar is probably going to end up in San Jose. I think he has like
Okay.
um, he shares an agent with a couple goalies in San Jose, so I think it's like people think he's going to end up there.
Okay.
But he's a
I mean,
backup.
it can be exactly. The next one on this list is probably like the next closest thing to Jake Allen, and that's Ilya Samsonov, who was pretty good. Was it last year, or 2 years ago, for
Yeah,
Vegas?
I think it was a year or two ago. He was with
Yeah,
Toronto too and
he
played pretty
was.
well.
Yep. hmm But not again. You're not. That's not like a oh my god they got Samsonov kind of move. Like, it's just kind of that doesn't move the needle if you ask me.
Yeah, yeah. It's just kind of a band aid, I think. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
I can see though if you are a free agent goalie and you believe like someone like for example like Billy Huso, I think just turned 30 years old. Um, I think like the word on him is he's kind of a late bloomer. Um, I would probably look at the Flyers like if I'm heading to market and I'm a goalie like Billy Huso, I'm probably looking at the Flyers situation thinking like, well, I have a chance to come in and win a starting job there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because there's like, we only have one goalie that we're considering for the roster next year. So that's an interesting one. But yeah, I mean, the options they're limited. They're limited. And I think the trade market is it's not really there. I mean, there's the kid in St. Louis, Joe Hoffer.
Yep.
His name's kind of been out there, but the Blues want like a first round pick plus. Probably does not make much sense for the Flyers to do that, or a lot of
No.
teams for that matter. Um, so I mean, like, there's not a lot out there, But you never know. I mean, I guess that's why they're looking high and low, as all the insiders are saying for goaltending. The Flyers are really kind of hot on the goaltending trail because you know there's just not a lot of options there.
Yeah. There really isn't. It's it's funny. It's a problem we've had for God how long? 50 years it seems like.
Yeah, it just never ending with the
No.
goaltending. So it
No.
always seems to be the Achilles heel.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. All right. From one draft to the next, the NBA draft Wednesday night, right? Not tomorrow night.
Yep, tomorrow night.
So the latest report is the Sixers don't have any plans on drafting Ace Bailey. Probably the right call and the smart call. So at this point, it's either VJ Edgecombe or a trade down. Like those are the
Yeah,
options.
yeah, pretty much. I think the Ace Bailey thing. I don't know if you saw him, Mike, but he threw out the first pitch at the Mets game.
Did not see that.
Yeah, um, it might have been. Was it tonight? I just this kid has done nothing to endear himself to Philadelphia whatsoever.
No.
I don't know how much clearer he can be about not wanting to be here. Um, but it's actually like at a point now where like you're actually like costing yourself money, you
Definitely.
know. And
And like if he doesn't, if the Sixers don't draft him at 3, how far down does he go? Because in my opinion, he's a walking red flag.
yes, I would
Like,
agree with that. Yeah,
so where does he go? Like, how far does he drop down? If he's like you said, he's costing himself millions of dollars.
the crazy thing is too. One of the rumored things about Bailey is that some of the teams that he's like, well, I'll play for them, but I won't play for this team. It's like Washington,
Yeah,
uh, uh, New Orleans, uh, Brooklyn, like these teams that are like, I mean, Washington stinks. Like
yeah,
they're
yeah,
awful, and it's like if he wants to go there and like average 25 as a rookie or whatever, that might be a great place to do that. I'm not saying it's not, but like you know, I don't know how he seems like he's being led astray by his management, whoever that is. I don't know who's representing him, but to cause this much of a circus, and he's undoubtedly like the number 3 prospect in the draft, and he's going to end up going later unless someone trades up to get him.
So where does Washington, Brooklyn, and who was the third team you said?
New Orleans.
Yeah, well, where do they pick in the draft? I'd have to look at that.
I'd have to look too. I was looking at it last night, and I can't remember where that was.
Huh.
I got to look at a mock draft first, then, but
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now. Washington picks at 6. So
okay, yeah.
theoretically, if he could drop down to 6. The latest mock draft I have up right now has Ace Bailey going to them at 6. I guess because he's just kind of forcing his way to one of these markets. But again, why Washington? Why?
Right, like it, and like the terminology is like he didn't address it. He spoke, I guess tonight. He spoke recently, and didn't I don't understand the song and the dance about it. That's the only like if you don't want to work out with someone, that's fine. Just say you don't want to work out with them. Don't
Yeah,
schedule the workout and then like bail on the workout like the last minute and say, yeah, I'm not coming. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Why are you doing that? The only scenario too, and I don't know that like I've seen many people talk about this, but maybe the Sixers do take him at 3 and force some of these other teams to make a trade with them and say like, hey, we don't plan on keeping him, but we'll flip him to you for other assets.
Yeah, but at
Um,
that point, what leverage do you have as the Sixers to get what you want in a trade like that? You know what I mean?
right, right, yeah. So that's the only scenario where that kind of plays out. Somebody we didn't talk about though, Mike, was aside from VJ Edgecombe, is Trey Johnson is also there from Texas. He's another guard. Um, I think some people think he might be one of the best pure scorers in the draft at the guard position, anyway. And he could be a possibility for the Sixers as well if they stay at three. But there's so many scenarios, and the Bailey thing's going to be fascinating tomorrow. Like, I mean, I'm going to watch this stuff anyway, but seeing how that plays out tomorrow and what he's going to have to say when he goes up there and gets the hat and the jersey, you know what I mean? Like, for wherever he ends up, it's I've never seen somebody like put themselves in a position like this where it seems like already an enemy walking in the second
Yeah.
like he even stepped on a floor in the NBA.
And already put himself on such a pedestal where like you haven't done anything in this league, nothing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like,
Paul George just recently said on his own podcast that now, granted, I don't know if it means anything coming from PG, but he was saying like exactly that. Like you haven't like you haven't earned the right to cancel all these workouts on NBA teams. You know what I mean? Like,
right? He's
and
not LeBron James out of high school. Like, what are we
right,
doing?
yeah, yeah. It's very, I don't get it. I don't get it.
No. I guess just today's athlete's just so much different. I guess
Mm.
where like they all want the, and what is his like? Did he even say his reason? Is it just he wants the easiest path to be a star? Like he doesn't want to have to work, he doesn't have to fight for playing time. Like he just wants to be a star from day one. It seems like.
Yeah, I think that's the only explanation we've been given. Even then, I don't know what that exactly means. Like I said, like does that mean going to Washington where you're going to get all this playing time and minutes because they don't have anybody else to get the ball? Like and you can just fill it up and like stat pad.
If you go to a place like Philly, where maybe there isn't a clear cut, starting role for you day one. If you play well enough, they'll give you the minutes. And Jared McCain last year literally proved that. Like no, before he got hurt, nobody was expecting him to do what he did, to play how he played, and he was given the minutes because he earned them. Like if you
Yeah.
play well, you will get your minutes. It's that simple.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think the Sixers are in any um if he was willing to come here and wanted to make it work here, if he came in and it's not like the Sixers are picking where they're picking because of, a dreadful season that they had. And there's no guarantee that like there's not going to be minutes available for you to get in here and play and prove you can play at this level. So I don't know exactly why he's so particular about where he wants to go, other than the fact that I think he's being told that by representation and things like that. But um, it seems like they're leading him astray to me on that, and it's going to cost them money, I would imagine. And and if he doesn't become a star, I mean, this is going to be one of the this will
Yeah,
be a really crazy story to look back on.
dodge the bullet if that's the case.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So
But it's just funny that it's like not even just a regular basketball. It's a guy from Rutgers. Like you play basketball at Rutgers. So what are we doing?
yeah,
And not to mention they didn't even make the tournament, and they had two guys that are supposed to go high in this draft. What's good?
yeah.
Like you didn't make the how special could you possibly be?
Yep. I think it's that's fat. That I know you and Dom talked about that on a
Yeah,
show, and it's a fascinating question to like consider today with basketball because there are so many players that play uh, that make it to the NBA now because they're great athletes and they get drafted high, make millions of dollars, and they don't know how to play basketball because they're
yep,
not like the game at a youth level is very very like specialized. I think to some degree baseball has that now as well, where like guys know how to they're taught how to do a specific thing and only that thing, whereas like players of yesteryear were like they're just playing pickup, like they're just
Yeah.
having open runs, and that's how you learn how to play. But a lot of these guys make it on their athleticism, and then they get to 1 year of college. I think the one and done thing changed that in college, where the training grounds went away for guys to learn how to play basketball if you didn't already know at that young age of 18 or whatever. So guys end up going to the league and they have to like learn how to play basketball at that and I can't imagine how difficult that is at that age against like the top 1% basketball players in the world. And basketball is already an incredibly difficult game to play anyway. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you have to like develop those parts of your game without really having any real knowledge of how to do so. Like you're really all reliant on the team that brings you in and their coaching and their system and summertime workouts and all that other stuff. So it's a really different time, in basketball.
Yeah. Yeah, I just remember like the big knock against, and me and Dom also talked about this, but like the biggest knock against Ben Simmons when the Sixers drafted him is, well, his team didn't even make the tournament. Like, how dominant or how good could he possibly be? And turns out like that criticism was probably right.
Yeah, it probably had something
looking back,
Yeah,
it's go ahead.
It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what sport it is or anything like that. I mean, if you have never played in a big game in your life, you can't know, you know what I mean? Like how these games are played and the atmosphere and like how things get tighter, if you
and how you react to that pressure of the big game too.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I think for like any basketball fans listening out there, look at the Pacers this year getting in the NBA Finals. Probably one of the most mentally tough teams I've ever seen. Just their ability to just stay like on task and focused. I know they didn't win it, but they took a really, really good Thunder team to 7 games.
If Halliburton doesn't get hurt, they might win it.
They might win it. And so I mean, they're a perfect example, I think, of that. So you really can't you can't replicate that. There's no way to replicate that kind of pressure and atmosphere where you're the guy in a big moment. Where guys like, Cooper Flagg is at the top of this draft. There's 3 guys in the top 10 from Duke. You play at Duke, you know what pressure is about because you play in big games at Duke. You don't play in big games at Rutgers.
Right.
Exactly. I mean? So, and Denton, and Denton this year.
Right.
So, it's a really crazy situation. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to have my popcorn ready.
Absolutely. I'll be watching. I typically don't usually watch the NBA draft, but I will definitely be watching tomorrow night because I am curious to see how it plays out, to see if they call his bluff and draft him or if they just completely take him off their board. That's probably looking at it, it's probably the smartest thing to do is just, you know what, he doesn't want to come here. Why draft a guy that doesn't want to be here? See you later. Get somebody else or trade back. But
now there's an interesting part of that too, Mike, where I know that I actually read late last night, maybe this morning. I think it was on CBS Sports. They said that Charlotte, who I think is picking directly behind the Sixers, they love TJ Edgecombe. So there might be a trade there with the Sixers. Maybe they deal with Charlotte, and Charlotte takes Edgecombe. Again, I don't know what kind of asset you can really get out of Charlotte that kind of works for you.
it'd probably be like a future pick swap or something like that.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
But maybe then, why wouldn't you just take Edgecombe then at that point?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he can kind of – maybe the fit's a little clunky, but, again, like we just said about the Flyers draft, take the talent and make it work later, figure that stuff out later. So that's
it'd be funny if the Sixers traded back to 5 and then draft Bailey before he gets to Washington.
Oh, dude.
Just as a big fuck you
Oh,
to
man.
Ace Bailey.
I
That'd be
would.
funny.
We need like perfect moment to,
Yes.
the quick pan to Bailey sitting there. That would be
Be great television.
crazy. Oh, it would be perfect. It would be perfect. I love that idea. I hope that happens.
That's brilliant. All right. You got anything else with this draft before we move on to Phillies
No.
talk?
No, I don't. Other than just, I don't get the Bailey thing, man. And
Yeah.
I don't want you here anyway. But now that you threw out the first pitch at the Mets game, I definitely don't want you here. So you can.
Yeah.
You can.
That is weird. Where's he from? Is he from up there?
I don't know.
You go to
don't-
Rutgers. I mean, it's basically essentially a New York school, I guess, but
Yeah.
it's far enough up there. But I'm
Yeah.
curious
I'm not.
because why throw the first pitch at the Mets game if you don't have other than going to Rutgers? Like, what ties do you have to the New York Mets?
Yeah. No. I think it might just be he's a Rutgers star. I don't know if you saw that. I was doing air quotes around the star, but
So, yeah, yes,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but we'd have to look that up. I'm not sure where he is or where he's from, rather.
he is from. So he went to high school 2 places, one in Tennessee and one in Georgia. So not from New York, from what I
Okay.
gather. He grew up
Um,
in Chattanooga, Tennessee. There you go.
Oh, okay. Well, all right.
Yes. All right, we can move on to the Phillies now. Starting to get back on track a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we're just kind of waiting for things to play out, whether it's in the trade market or waiting for Bryce Harper to get healthy. Seems fairly close. I don't know if it'll be in this series with Houston, but by the end of the week, I think there's a legit chance you see him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like people are just kind of. I mean, it's a dog days of summer. Obviously, it's goddamn 100 degrees outside. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we're just kind of waiting for things to happen. Nobody knows if they should be all in on this team or not because it seems like every other couple of weeks they give us a reason not to trust them, and then we're all right back in again a couple of weeks later. But I don't know what to make of this team right now. They're just kind of up and down. I think they're leading the division, right? They're back in first, I believe, for the Mets.
Yep, they're back in first. I feel the same way. I don't know what to make of them. I think back to last year at the end of the season last year, and I was ready for sweeping changes to come through here after the playoffs and things like that. And I was like, this team's they're getting older now. Like they need to start looking in a different. This has to look different. They virtually ran it back. You know what I mean? It was pretty much the same group, and yeah, they look as up and down. I think as they've been in the past. I mean, and it, like you said, it is the dog days of summer. It's such a long year, right? But yeah, I mean, the Mets series was encouraging, but it's also in June. That would have meant more, in late July, early August, a series like that to win a series like that. But yeah, it's weird because then how do you we kind of touched on this, or we did touch on this in the last show, but it's a really tough position to be in for the deadline. Do you go all in on the group knowing that this is probably your last chance? You're probably going to have to use some of that prospect capital to address
I was going to
that.
say, what does all in mean? Does it mean trading an Aiden Miller or a Justin Crawford? If it means trading one of those guys, if that's what all in means, I don't think I'm all in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I would agree with that. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to think, who are the top names out there?
Right. I was just about to say, and I hesitate to even use the word big name, but the biggest guy I've heard of is Cedric Mullins. And I think we talked about him last week, maybe. But
yeah, we did.
It's a guy that he's fine. Does it move the needle? I don't think so.
Yeah. And then
the
Yeah.
rotation and they could use another bullpen arm, but like I think at some point you're gonna move one of the starters into the bullpen anyway. So just doing that probably helps the bullpen out. So like what sweeping change could you really make in the bullpen either? Like their rotation's fine.
Yeah.
They maybe could use another bat. They obviously need a center fielder. But other than Cedric Mullins, like who's out there?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's weird because we said this the last show too, like where the Mets are also in the market for bullpen help. So it's also an arms race, figuratively and literally, with the team you're competing with
Yeah.
for the division. And, so like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like in other years, it's felt like there's like bigger names available, at the deadline and stuff like that. This year doesn't really feel like that way to me. And other than because anytime you add bullpen arms, it's never like it's never the sexy thing to do, but it's going to help you come September and October. Um, but everybody needs them too. You know what I mean? Everybody that planning on being there, they're going to need that relief pitching and that depth there. But yeah, like I mean, like you said, I mean, they're going to have to make a decision there with somebody in the rotation just because they have so many starters. Like they're going to have to move someone to the pen anyway. So
Yeah. So right now I'm on this is ESPN.com, and they rank the top. I don't have to go through all 50, but they rank the top 50 trade deadline candidates around the league, and they kind of give the percentage chance that they're traded. Like number one on this list is Alex Bregman. Alex Bregman just signed a massive contract with the Red Sox. He is not getting traded in my opinion. Their chance of trade is 10%. So like I could probably skip him.
yeah.
Number two on those list, Jarren Duran. I like Jarren Duran a lot. I don't think they're trading him either. Sandy Alcantara. Phillies don't really need a starting pitcher. I like Alcantara, and
Yeah.
he's not the same guy he was maybe 3-4 years ago, but he's still a really effective pitcher. Freddie Peralta, like I said, don't need a starting pitcher. Eugenio Suarez, number 5th for Arizona. I think they're kind of in too deep with Bohm that I don't see them really trading for a third baseman anyway.
Yeah.
Seth Lugo for Kansas City, he's starting, but he has some experience in the bullpen. He originally was a bullpen guy a handful of years ago, so maybe. Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Josh Naylor. I mean, I could keep going until you hear a name you really like. Ryan O'Hearn, Marcell Ozuna, Joan Duran. I guess that's Jared's brother, right? Are they related
Okay.
or no?
Yeah, they might be related.
I don't know. I could be making that up. Emmanuel Clase, kind of a guy that people wanted them to get from Cleveland a year or two ago.
Classe,
I don't
is
know.
Classe? He's older now, isn't he?
Let's see if I can find his age.
I want to say he's in his mid to late 30s.
Is he? I would have said like 29. He's
Really?
27. He's 27.
What the?
Yeah,
What
he's
am I?
27.
Who am I
years old.
thinking of?
I don't know.
Maybe he looks older. I don't know. I thought he'd been around way longer than that.
27. Felix Bautista, relief pitcher for Baltimore. And number 15 on this list, Cedric Mullins. It has Philadelphia as the best fit for him. I don't know. Ryan McMahon, Pete Fairbanks, Aroldis Chapman,
Okay.
Luis Robert Jr., Taylor Ward, Nolan Arenado. I mean, none of these names I don't think are screaming like all in for. I'm
Yeah.
trying to keep going down until I see a name I like. Adolis Garcia,
Okay.
still scrolling. I don't really see anything after that. So I mean, the market really like. There's no guy who's like I gotta have that guy.
Right. I think it'd be cool to have Aroldis Chapman come in.
Yeah,
I'd enjoy that. I don't know if it's going to help him win games, but I would enjoy watching him pitch for the Phillies.
well they definitely do need like a high leverage guy like that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you're closing out a playoff game or a playoff series, who do you trust in the bullpen to close that out every time?
Yeah,
It's
That's
kind of
been
just a committee. There really is no one guy.
and they've been doing that for years now. Like where like they really don't have that like set like and maybe other teams do this as well. I'm not watching everybody as closely as I'm watching the Phillies, but they don't have like this, you know, like when we need to close the door in a game, we got our seventh inning and eighth inning guy, and then so and so's coming in to close it out in the ninth. Like we really don't have that. It's kind of just as you put it, a committee, and and you kind of have you kind of have guys in those roles, but in like de facto roles, like they're kind of it depends on the night and all, and I guess right. I don't know. Would you consider Strom that guy? Like,
Yeah, but do you trust them to close out playoff game? Like, I don't know that I do.
no, I don't. But
Right, right,
I'm
exactly.
not at all. But I feel like he's the guy that they use in that predicament. You know what I mean? And um, yeah, maybe I could talk myself into Aroldis Chapman. I'll do that right now. Let's bring. What could that cost at this point? Like, I
Right.
mean, he's in what? He's in Boston, right? Like
Yep. Mhm.
they're doing all kinds of stupid stuff. Like they could, we might not even have to give them anything to get to get him in here, So
So I was just curious. I looked at the the team leaders in saves for the Phillies,
mhm.
and number one is Jordan Romano, and I don't trust him at all. I know he's gotten better since the first handful of stuff, but I still don't trust him at all. He's got 8 saves. He's the leader in the clubhouse
Yeah,
in saves. Alvarado 7, but we're not going to have him for the playoffs. So
no,
I kind of throw that out the window. Then Matt Strom has 4, Kirkering has 2, Banks, Lazar, and Walker all have 1.
okay,
So again, I ask you this: who's closing games in the playoffs?
yeah,
Who's doing it?
yeah. I think I think. See, I'm legitimately talking myself into this now, like about the Chapman thing, just because like they do need somebody who's been there and has done it, and maybe they're cooked at this point, but like the experience might matter. I don't, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I, yeah, it's an interesting thing. I'm not really sure. I'm not comfortable with any of that. What you just,
no,
I mean, like,
no.
um, I'm comfortable with Romano in like a setup role. I'm completely okay with that. Or to have like options there with him and um, Strom and those other guys because um, I'm okay with that. But I think like they need someone to close the door, like a true closer. I feel.
Don brings up a good point here. Good, Felix Bautista and Cedric Mullins, kind of in a package. I would do something like that.
Yeah.
Abel and name whatever other prospect you want to give up. Maybe not named Miller, Painter, Crawford. Although for that, I mean, Bautista's a guy who has a little team control. He's a free agent in a couple of seasons. He's been great from what I've read. He's been great so far this since he returned from Tommy John.
Mhm.
But that's a move I'd be interested in. Because again, it's while Cedric Mullins doesn't move the needle, he's an upgrade probably of what you have, and you help the bullpen out with Bautista as well.
Yeah, I kind of said when we talked about that last week, I kind of like though dropping like maybe by himself, adding Mullins doesn't. It's not gonna like pop any. It's not gonna pop his numbers, but it might slot guys in the lineup better. Where like you can put him behind Turner at 2, you know what I mean, and like it kind of off. Like I feel a little bit more comfortable with like the top, 1 through 4. If there's like someone like a Mullins in there, because Mullins can hit for some power too. It's not like
Yep.
he's got good gap to gap power and things like that. And so yeah, like I feel like too. I mean, we've seen that quite a bit. Like since we talked about that, I've seen that pop up a number of times. Like about a possible scenario. I don't know if that's speculatory or there's actually some smoke there that the Phillies have in Baltimore have had some discussions. I don't know. But In which case, I mean, I would try to keep Abel up here till the deadline, just to
Yeah.
showcase him a little bit. And
Rough outing his last outing.
he was, yeah, that was a rough outing.
Yep.
But it's still early on, and I think Dom mentioned too, like teams getting tape on guys, and that's what happens, and baseball's a game of adjustments, always has been and always will be. So you have to, he's going to have to correct that. But it looked like.
Do you want me?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. You can jump in there.
I was gonna say, do you want to hear? Because we do talk about needing the Phillies needing some pop and some power. I'll give you a stat that I heard over the weekend that I thought was incredibly sad. Mickey Moniak has more home runs than anybody on the Phillies not named Kyle Schwarber.
Does he really?
Mickey Moniak. Yep. He's 11 home runs so far. 11.
Wow. Is he playing every day for the Angels?
I don't. It's a good question. I don't know. All I know is he has more home runs than anybody on the Phillies not named Kyle Schwarber. That's obviously Harper missed some time, but that's Turner, Castellanos, JT, like the entire team. He would be second on the Phillies in home runs.
That's crazy.
Yes,
that is crazy. Especially, it's even crazier if he's not playing every day.
I don't even know. I don't know how many games he's played.
Well, I mean, the Angels probably stink, right? I don't know what they're.
Yes,
what they look
do.
like right now.
He's got 11 home runs in where the games played. Oh, he's not even in LA anymore.
Oh, where is he? See,
Colorado.
Goes to show what I know. I didn't even know he was out there.
See, I had the stat, and I didn't even know where he played anymore.
Yeah, that's crazy.
66 games. That's probably most of them.
Yeah. One of the funnier things I seen, like we have to talk. I wanted to mention this, and this is a good time to mention it. Did you see the Whit Merrifield retired?
Yes.
And apologize to all of us for his time here about stinking, and he enjoyed his time in Philadelphia more than we enjoyed having him here.
I don't know if he meant it in a funny way. I'm sure he did, but like that's one, that's self-aware, and two, I got a kick out of it. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, no,
I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. It makes me like him more now.
Anytime somebody's self-deprecating, I can get behind that.
Yeah, that's fun. That's always fun. Especially when you're a pro athlete, and we're, I had high, and I think a lot of people had high hopes for Merrifield when they brought him in, and he was just a little older. He wasn't the Whit Merrifield he was in Kansas City, and but no, I enjoyed that, and so
and the thing is, we would have taken just okay Whit Merrifield. He was awful. He's terrible.
Yeah, and how many Phillies players have there been over the years? I know there's been plenty in my lifetime of guys that we could say that about, where like they've brought in guys in, and just a litany of players that maybe were good at one time, but they weren't very good here, or
was it Carlos Santana who was like great the year before they got him, was just okay here, and then he left and he was great again?
Yeah, I think it was Carlos Santana. Yeah.
He also smashed the TV in the Phillies clubhouse. Great times.
Yeah, that was over the video game thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What a sad state of affairs.
Yep.
But
either way, I thought that stat was funny. Well, more sad than funny, the Moniak stat.
No, it is.
But yeah, I mean, we're just like I said, we're just kind of waiting here. Suarez has pitched an absolute gem of a game tonight.
He has. Now,
the Phillies bats also can't hit, so he might not get the win to show for it, but it's a close game. So
6 innings, 3 hits, 7 strikeouts for Ranger. Mundo Sosa has 2 hits tonight. 2 of the Phillies' 4 hits. He had a big weekend. So
Rangers up to a 7, and I don't know if the stat you're looking at is not updated yet, but 7 1/3 so far.
So he's still okay.
Yeah, he's still on the mound in the bottom of the 8th inning.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep, 7 1/3, 7 strikeouts. I think that just said. So, you got anything else before we get on out of here?
No, I think I wanted to mention the Whit Merrifield thing. So
Yes, yes, yeah.
you know,
What did he say? He said, "Sorry, I didn't." I literally had it right here. Hold on,
yeah, I was just looking at it.
okay. If my phone would upload. Philly, I liked you way more than you liked me. Sorry, I stunk for you. That was it. That's all. that's that's the entire mention of Philadelphia.
Listen, Whit. We like you at Fired Up
Uh,
Sports. Whit,
yes, come on
there's
the
a
show.
formal invitation. Come do the show,
Yes,
and we can do you can do a Philly segment with us. It'll be great
it'll be great.
because
Yes,
you clearly know us incredibly well in your short time here. So
yeah, yes,
uh, we appreciate that. So come on the show. Let's shout out to Whit Merrifield here.
absolutely. That's an open invitation.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're gonna get out of here. A lot to look for this week. Obviously, with the 2 drafts coming up, we'll have a lot to talk about next week, and the picks and things they've done, and any other trades and moves. And we will see everybody next Tuesday. See you then.